Hotel. So yeah, I remember when I was in Los Angeles, right before I left there and moved here to Vancouver, I had a job down there working as a security guard. That's what my job was. I worked at a lot of different posts. I worked at this one place called the Marina, and I used to work the graveyard shift out there. And every morning it was this lady. She was a white lady with real long black hair. She was like, I guess she was young, probably about 31 years old. But she told me she had moved here about 17 years ago. She told me when she moved up here when she was a teenage girl from a place in Yugoslavia called, she said it was in Eastern Europe. Wait a minute. She said that she lived in a place called, I think she said Albania. Okay, I think that's what she said, that she lived, or either, it was another name. She said, it was Service something. Cervical, I think she said it was. I can't think of it. But anyway, it was a place where it was war-torn. She said when she left there, she was leaving there to flee from circumstances of a rebel war between the Serbs, she said, and I can't remember all that information, but she said it was a war going on in where she lived at, the land she lived in. Between, I remember she said the Serbs was involved with it, and something about the Ukraine. And anyway, my point is this: she told me a story about how later down the line there was people that was left after war-torn Yugoslavia at the hands of these people that represented the peace bringers that the rest of the world understood had entered these soils to establish a ceasefire and bring a calm and a peacefulness to this war-torn region. But she told me a whole different story because she had family that lived there, and she used to drink her wine and smoke cigarettes, and she used to be really, she was not really bitter, but she was a woman that was very aware of the corruption and the politics of the world. She wasn't racist at all. She was a white lady who really appreciated me, and she loved having conversations with me because by her had been through what she had been through, she was aware of bad propaganda. So she never once struck me as being a racist woman. She was a very wise lady. I think she smoked cigarettes too much, but she was very smart. But anyway, the reason why I brought this up is because I decided I was going to go out and do some research about that story that she had told me about girls that was forced into prostitution by these, if you will, military armies that was left in the country, okay, of Yugoslavia. And she said these people came in under the pretense to the rest of the world that they were the do-gooders, and they actually came in and set up whorehouses where they forced the girls that was left in that war-torn city, as well as other girls that they imported into that region. She said they even brought women from other places around Europe and forced them all into, in other words, she said all of that region over there is pretty much prostitution and corruption. Is what she was saying to me. And I was like finding that really hard to believe. And I spaced it off. I didn't give it no more thought. I just said, okay, good. At the time I was too busy with my own work that I never did any research into that. But for a strange reason today, my mind reminded me of that conversation that I had with her. So I decided I was going to go on the internet and see if there was any backup type of actions that was recorded that would add, you know what I'm saying, some stability to her story. Because I just wanted to find out. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not a person that would ever be skeptical or do too much scrutinizing to any person accusation of someone doing something wrong to another human being. I know that exists all over the world. So I didn't have one doubt in my mind that what she was saying was true. But what I was concerned about is if the players in this game she said was actually involved, because I always was suspicious that the UN was corrupt for America as well as the other European powers. So that's really what I went to go and find out, because she told me that the people who came and brought on the ceasefire and supposed to have stagnated the war attempts on both sides was the UN, and they were the ones who took control of things, and all this stuff started, she said, after the war ended and the war-torn remnants of these areas. So this is what I found. I'm going to read it to you guys, all right? Listen to this. Okay, it says, on October the 27th through the 30th, 1997, in the capital of Yugoslavia, Belgrade, over 120 women from 17 countries of Eastern Europe gathered to take part in a working seminar, Women Against Violence and Rape. The representatives from Azerbaijan, Albania, Latvia, and Uzbekistan and Belarus were not present because they didn't receive visas for entry into Yugoslavia. In Belarus, the president outlawed the work of Soros Foundation, the organization financing this seminar. We 4 women from Ukraine were lucky enough to receive word from our friends in Yugoslavia that while obtaining our visas and at the custom control in Belgrade airport, we not mentioned our participation at this conference. Therefore, we came as tourists on a tourist visa. The Balkans met us with a cold wind, yellow leaves, and cigarette smoke. It seems that here everyone smokes, regardless of age and gender. It was explained later that the population in this way attempts to protect itself from atmospheric pressure, which can change hourly. The work on the seminar was started immediately upon arrival from the airport. There was no time for relaxation. For the women from the former Yugoslavia, this seminar became a unique opportunity for communication after many years of isolation related to the horrible war, which brought grief, rape, and violence. But what made us Ukrainian women come to this seminar in Belgrade is to answer this question. Okay, but what made us women come to this seminar in Belgrade? To answer this question, I will quote a letter which was written in Serbian. The letter came to Ukraine from Banja Luka, Serbian Republic. The author wished to remain anonymous. Okay, help the girls from Ukraine. Their situation is hopeless. They need immediate help. They were taken in a deceiving manner to area bars to work as dancers, where they are forced into prostitution. The girls do not receive any money, and the bar owners makes a tremendous profit on them. The corrupt area police help to establish these places and to avoid planned police raids. The girls' documents are taken away. They threaten and harass them. They have no way of escaping from this hell and returning home. During the day, they keep them prisoners in a room, and at night force them to sleep with clients. And one such night, one girl of one girl, the owner makes 200 to 300 German marks, and for 1 hour, 100 marks. If the girl begins to protest, they get harassed, beaten, and not given anything to eat. They have no place to look for help. They are later resold to the Muslim part of Bosnia, from where there is no return forever. These people are without heart, horrible mafiosi. We work in close contact with the police. These people are without heart, horrible mafiosi who work in close contact with the police. Often the girls commit suicide. In their name, I turn to you to help them return home to Ukraine. My name I cannot give because I will be killed by the mafia if they find out about this letter. In the name of God in truth, help each woman. In the name of God in truth, help. Each woman has a right to life, has a right to manage herself and her body. She is not a white slave who can be discounted or killed. I don't know why they had to add white in there. They could have just said she is not a person that should be treated this way. She is someone who should be treated better. She is someone who is in dire need of help. All that. She is not a white slave. That's the total crap bullshit thought pattern of the American public, you know, and just around the whole planet. Why did the information about white even have to be put in there? Does it mean that if she was black, it'd be okay for this to be happening. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm just trying to point that out. Okay, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm just saying she is not a white slave who can be discounted or killed. It should just say she is not someone who should be treated this way. That would have been sufficient. Okay, it says, I hope for your help very much. Now watch this. The author gives the exact name of the bar, restaurant, and their address. Even more, she gives the names of the owners. The author explains that these places flourish especially on the territories named by the armies of the UN and NATO. The Eastern Croatia, that's where she says she was from, Croatia. The Eastern Croatia, Sarajevo, the soldiers receive good pay and can afford to spend their free time in particular entertainment. But in Belgrade, where the war didn't reach and where there are no soldiers from the UN and NATO stationed, plenty of these bars where Ukrainian girls are forced to work exist. The Belgrade owner also receives big profit earnestly fulfilling the mafia's order. In the Belgrade bars, the Ukrainian girls are beaten, forced into prostitution, but at least they don't kill them. Here they protect them with weapons in their hands and don't even let them leave to see a doctor. They do not spend money on abortions. In case a girl gets pregnant, she is forced to work until her 5th month, and then she is thrown out into the street. Some of these girls successfully run away, but the road home runs through the Belgrade prisons for foreigners. They wind up on the streets of a foreign city without any documents. The road of the Ukrainian girl into the sex industry on the territory of the former Yugoslavia is typical. It begins with an ad in the newspaper, an unexpected meeting on a train, or in a restaurant in her native city with a proposition to work as a maid, dancer, or waitress in Italy. But with this, it is explained that it is not possible to obtain a visa into Italy, and that they will have to go through the territory of former Yugoslavia and afterwards by ferry boat to Italy. The seducers takes the girls first to Azharad, where they may spend a week or two until they form a group of 10. They are then taken by train to the mountain cities of Zahed or Debrecen at the border with Yugoslavia, where they spend 2 to 3 days awaiting a bus heading south. Here the native seducers have good contacts with their Yugoslavian colleagues, and then in tight cooperation transport the girls to the city of Novi Sad, the territory of Yugoslavia, capital of Autonomous Republic of Vojvodina. Here they remove all the documents from the girls and transport them to various bars. The worst is to wind up in Bosnia, Herzegovina, or Eastern Croatia. Just until recently, this area was filled with sounds of war, with blood flowing, but today a relative calm is kept by the armies of the UN and NATO. In these territories, Ukraine has no government representatives. Here the girls suffer a difficult fate. One who was able to escape from this hell related that in her group of 6, one girl categorically refused to work as a prostitute. They beat and tortured her, and she still didn't give in. They then took her out into the fields, and before everyone, they slit her throat. Bosnia and Herzegovina are divided into 3 areas: Serbs, Croats, and Muslims. There are no crossovers between them. The mafia pays bribes in transporting these girls, understanding full well that it will be impossible for them to leave on their own from this territory. They relate that one girl from Kimavesti was aided by Russian soldiers and escaped by jumping from a second-story balcony, only in her corset into a military vehicle with UN insignia. They rushed her out, dressed her in a military uniform, and helped her to get to Belgrade. Okay. Area newspapers reported that the girls that wind up in these territories can be sold and resold by the mafia from one bar to the next for 7 years. And only then, when they are fully used up, they are thrown out into the streets and let go. Recently, a 42-year-old who has a 17-year-old son in Ukraine had been released. She related that she was enlisted to work as a maid in Italy after she lost her job in a factory. A widely used method of dealing with the uncooperative and difficult girls is to sell them to the Muslim sector. They relate that so far no one has escaped from Muslim hands, and therefore their fate is unknown. Military actions in Balkans were essentially in Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Croatia. The war generally omitted Serbia, which is now a part of Yugoslavia. Notwithstanding the relative peaceful condition in Serbia and a comparatively higher socialist standard of living, there are villages in the southern mountainous part of Serbia which had not yet been electrified and were always isolated from civilization. The climate here is very harsh. The youth does not remain in this area, and the women are so heavily overworked that they have a low survival rate. Here the majority is male, whose attitudes toward women is radically different from Ukrainian attitudes. The woman is considered on the level of a slave, who is required to work for the man from daybreak till night, and who cannot even sit at the table with the man. The main rule of the Serbian man is women is not human. It is understandable that under these conditions most women die at a young age. One shrewd entrepreneur formed a company called Love You. This company is involved in enlisting Ukrainian women and girls to many Serbian men who live in the mountainous regions of southern Serbia. They say that this program of marriage received unofficial approval of the Yugoslavian government and the blessing of the Serbian Patriot Paul because it proposes to renew the gene pool of the nation. Obviously, this firm has enough profits to place TV advertisements for enlistments of women from the gene pool of the nation. Excuse me. I messed up. It said, obviously, this firm has enough profits to place TV advertisements for enlistment of women from the Orthodox world, especially Ukraine. Beginning in the spring of 1997, the city of Cherkasy in the Oblast region had the opportunity to view several romantic TV advertisements proposing marriage in the picturesque mountain region of southern Serbia with similar ads in the local newspaper. Some women were brave enough to make radical changes in their personal lives. We cannot condemn them in this. We are all aware that life in Ukraine at this time is difficult, and especially so for women. But if our women knew the fate that awaited them, they would make all efforts to remain at home. One resident of Cherkasy was able, through a miracle, to escape the clutches of her new Serbian husband. But now she has a problem with the director of this marriage agency, who threatens her with death if she doesn't compensate him monetarily for breaking the contract. The businessman threatens to find her in Ukraine if she manages to get across the border of Yugoslavia. This woman wound up without any documents or help in the streets of Belgrade. The whole problem of white slavery needs immediate actions by the governments of Ukraine. Laws are necessary to designate all the individuals engaged in the white slave trade as criminals. Ukrainian human rights organizations set as their goal to develop a wide campaign against the exportation of women and girls from Ukraine.